Is Iran's theocracy about to fall? On Sunday, and for the 15th night in a row, millions of protesters turned out all across the country denouncing their nation's fundamentalist, theocratic Islamic regime. Estimates range from 1,000 to 2,000 or more civilians murdered by their own country's leadership. Will Israel preempt Tehran by attacking it first? Reporting from Israel for EndTimes.com, this is Brian Schrauger. Is Iran's theocracy about to fall? Will it attack Israel? Will it commission the Houthis in Yemen to resume missile attacks? Will Israel preempt Tehran by attacking it first? What will U.S. President Trump do? He has promised action, but will he take it? Meanwhile, what about Hamas in Gaza? Will it ever be disarmed? Will Trump's currently stalled peace plan work? As Iran loses its luster, Saudi Arabia is flexing its muscles, attacking UAE forces in Yemen and schmoozing up to al-Shara in Syria, while at the same time, it's in the middle of a high-risk venture to build a $1 trillion city called Neom. Getting everything he wants from the U.S., will MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, back away from joining the Abraham Accords? These days, he seems drawn more to Syria and Turkey than to Israel. As Iran declines in regional power, how quickly will Turkey move to take its place? Will it establish military bases in Syria just across Israel's northern border? Will it persuade Trump to allow its armed forces to be part of Gaza's peacekeeping force, placing those forces inside Israel? And what about Hezbollah, the so-called Party of Allah in Lebanon? Can its comeback be stopped? How does Israel's recognition of Somaliland advance its security? What does Somaliland have to do with anything? To say the least, Jerusalem's situation in the Middle East is complex, which is a clear sign of end times prophecies. Remember Daniel 11? Its first section in verses 1 through 35 predicts the rise and fall of Antiochus Epiphanes, the one who, about 2,200 years ago, conquered Jerusalem, sacrificed a pig on God's altar in his temple, then declared himself to be the manifestation of God, hence the name he adopted for himself, Epiphanes, God made manifest in me. Those first 35 verses in Daniel 11 describe a geopolitical complexity that every student of the Bible struggles to understand. The point for us today is that the remainder of Daniel 11 switches to a prophecy of the final Antichrist. His rise and conduct is portrayed as a natural extension of Antiochus Epiphanes, emerging in a blueprint or mirror of those days more than 2,000 years ago, including all of its geopolitical complexity. In other words, the complexity of our end times world is every bit as complex as it was in the days of the Middle East after the death of Alexander the Great. For us, that means at least one thing. We need to be serious students of today's geopolitical complexities in order to understand the times in which we live. Under the section in Daniel 11 about Antiochus Epiphanes, Daniel wrote, "Those who have insight among the people will give understanding to the many." He also added the sobering prediction that these same ones who gave understanding would fall by sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. Not only is that a blueprint for saints living during the tribulation, it's also our blueprint, our call in these days leading up to that time of trouble. It means a call to be students of our day, refusing to be distracted by everyday cares. including headlines screaming about other things in our given corners of the world. That's the big picture. From that bird's eye view, let's dive to ground level and take a look at today's news. These days, the headlines in Israel are all about Iran. On Sunday, and for the 15th night in a row, millions of protesters turned out all across the country denouncing their nation's fundamentalist, theocratic Islamic regime. This time, however, the mullahs' strongmen responded to their leadership's summons to war against those protesters, calling them terrorists who are controlled by the United States and Israel. Innocent civilians were gunned down in the streets. Lacking internet, reports only leaked out from the few who had access to Elon Musk's Starlink satellite system to the World Wide Web. We don't know exact numbers, but estimates range from 1,000 to 2,000 or more civilians murdered by their own country's leadership. Notably, the front page story in the U.S. these days has been the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent on 7 January. As videos of the event have come to light, the story has grown into almost complete dominance of the news. Yes, it is important, but it also serves to illustrate the ability of screaming headlines to distract from major geopolitical developments in the center of the end times world, Israel and its neighborhood of the globe. With respect to Iran's slaughter of innocents, there are two big questions in the Jewish state. The first one is this: will U.S. President Trump follow through with his threat to take action on behalf of innocent Iranians? 11 days ago, on 2 January, he warned that if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, the United States would come to their rescue, stating the U.S. military is locked and loaded and ready to go. On Sunday, he reiterated the threat.
They're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent. If you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Iran said that they would consider military and commercial bases as legitimate targets if you struck. Are you concerned about
do that? We'll consider things targets they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. And they won't even believe it. I have options that are so strong. So, I mean, if they did that, it'll be met with a very, very powerful force. She says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question. Go ahead.
Are you coordinating with allies on the response to Iran?
Okay, and back on Iran, the Ayatollah said that he thinks that the protesters are trying to, quote, please you. Do you see it that way? What's your message to the Iranian people?
I don't know that they're trying to please me. They named a boulevard after me, but that's pretty pleasing. But I don't think they're trying to please. I think they just want peace. They want to have freedom. The protesters are after freedom. Iran has not allowed freedom for a long time. And the protests, I don't think they're trying to appease me. They're trying to get somebody to help them. They're under siege. And now it looks like they're being shot, which is a very bad thing.
Yeah. What's the message?
Well, you're going to find out pretty soon. Iran called to negotiate.
Yes.
Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate, yes. We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up. But we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. Right. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate.
So, yes, he has warned Tehran, but to the frustration of many, he's not yet acted. The other big question in Israel is this. Anticipating a military threat, will Israel launch a preemptive strike? Having lived through 2 years of rocket and missile attacks, everyone here is a bit on edge about this. There is a weary anticipation of the need to once again seek shelter in reinforced safe rooms in almost every home, every neighborhood, every place of business in Israel. Whistling winds during a recent thunderstorm sometimes sounded like a missile alert from Israel's home front command. So too does a certain whine of motorcycles screaming down the streets in the middle of the night. We know an attack might not happen. We hope it won't. But we also know it easily could. We also know that Israel might decide to make its own preemptive strike against Iran. In a cabinet meeting on Sunday, Netanyahu addressed the drama of brave protesters in the Islamic Republic. Israel supports their struggle for freedom and firmly condemns the mass killings of innocent civilians. We all hope that the Persian nation will soon be liberated from the yoke of tyranny, and when that day comes, Israel and Iran will once again be faithful partners in building a future of prosperity and peace for both nations. He did not, however, indicate any action by Jerusalem to intercede on behalf of those innocent civilians. That does not mean Israel has failed to make a plan to act or that it will not do so. It only means that, publicly at least, plans are being made but no promises. In Jerusalem and in Washington, perhaps the biggest drawback to intercession in Iran is the lack of an organized plan to facilitate both the overthrow of Tehran's theocracy and leadership in waiting capable of establishing a viable government in its place. For its part, it is instructive for us to note that Israel is not allowing itself to be distracted by the biggest story in its geographical neighborhood. While the drama unfolds in Iran, Jerusalem is preparing for multiple scenarios. Yes, scenarios vis-a-vis Iran, but also readying itself for the possibility of renewed missile attacks from Iran's proxy in Yemen, the Houthis, and keeping its guard up against developments by its enemies and frenemies in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt, while at the very same time and on an entirely different front, launching a major public relations offensive on the global stages of social media. It is also important to note that Israel's preparations for multiple scenarios does not mean it believes any one of them will happen. It does mean, however, that it believes any one or more of them could happen. What are our biggest takeaways from all these things? First, we must be diligent in prayer, praying as we study the news, interceding for innocent victims when we hear about them, and seeking biblical understanding of the days in which we live. Our goal is not to interpret the news through any preconceived idea of how end-time prophecies must progress, who the players must be, and how they must behave. Instead, we examine developments in their own context and on their own merits so that, as things unfold, we discover their places in the biblical narrative. If we do these things, we will be in a position to help others understand what is really going on in our turbulent world. Like the godly men and women in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes, we too can be those who have insight among the people and give understanding to the many. Also, always mindful that, like those godly ones of old, we too may be destined to, quote, fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. Hence, we study and we pray, Maranatha, come, Yeshua Adonai, come. Reporting from Jerusalem for EndTimes.com, and until next time, this is Brian Schrauger. Thank you for making the time to engage with this report. To watch future reports without advertisements And to stay informed with the latest insights from Jimmy Evans, Mark Hitchcock, and experts from around the world, and for only $7 a month, I urge you, become a subscriber at endtimes.com. Sign up today